Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, carrying out your charitable wishes forever, whether it's helping shelter animals, feeding the homeless, enhancing the arts, or supporting students. Learn more at leaveabequest.org.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Hamley. It's so confusing. Remember the studies that said red wine is good for heart health, that it contains antioxidants and other plant compounds that may help reduce inflammation, fight cancer, and improve heart and gut health? Well, now the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the World Health Organization both say that drinking alcohol, any kind of alcohol, can increase your risk for cancer. So is it okay to have that adult beverage or not? Cardiologist Dr. Keith Newby puts the alcohol-cancer connection in perspective, and then some exciting news about Ballet Virginia. Stay tuned. Another View will be right back after this national, regional, and local news from NPR and WHRO News.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Hamley. Before we get into our conversation with our favorite cardiologist on the planet, Dr. Keith Newby, I want to tell you about a couple of things that are going on in our area that I think you will find interesting. The Office of Institutional Equity and Diversity, the Darden College of Education and Professional Studies, the Coalition of Black Faculty and Administrators, and Centera invite you to join them for the Big Read Community Conversation. Now, they're talking about the book Post-Traumatic Racism Disorder, The Health Crisis of Racism. That's happening on Thursday, February the 6th at 6:30 p.m., and it's going to be with alumni, ODU alum, Dr. Gregory C. Hutchins Jr., followed by a dynamic panel discussion, and that's going to be at the Chartway Arena Big Blue Room. Now, the doors open at 5:45, and RSVPs are encouraged, but they're not required. It is free and open to everyone. If you want to know more information, go to odu.edu/big-read. So it sounds like an interesting conversation that will be going on about racism and health. And also starting tonight, today is January 20th. No, that was last night. Started last night, January 29th through February the 16th. Fat Ham is happening at the Virginia Stage Company. And it is a play that is described as serving you a juicy blend of comedy, drama, and social commentary with a side of soul food, and reimagines the timeless classic Hamlet with a bold and innovative look that shatters stereotypes and celebrates identity, togetherness, and the meaning of family. Sounds like a great time. Everyone is raving about this play. It is called Fat Ham, and you can find out more at VasTage.org. That's VasTage.org. So lots of things going on in our area, which is one of the things that makes it so great to live here in Hampton Roads. So, are you confused about how your favorite cocktail could contribute to you developing cancer? Have you been enjoying that glass of red wine thinking you were helping your heart? And surely beer can't cause cancer, or can it? What do we do with this latest news that drinking any kind of alcohol can increase your cancer risk? Here to put it all in perspective is our favorite cardiologist, Dr. Keith Newby. How are you, sir?
I am doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's good to see you. Happy New Year.
Same to you. It's been a minute.
It has been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a
That's
minute.
right. It's been a while.
I didn't realize that till last night. I said, wait a minute. I ain't seen Barbara in over a month.
That's right.
Y'all dumped me in December.
December and November, because it was Thanksgiving and then Christmas. You're absolutely
see how I get
right.
put off to the side? Ah, man.
No, we just gave you a break because we know you're the hardest working man in the area. But I want, before we talk about drinking and cancer, which is a very serious topic within itself, there's been so much going on in this country in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
And then 2 weeks.
Barely.
And barely. And then last night, we lost 67 people between the helicopter and the airplane crash. They said there are no survivors in Washington. Give us some advice, Keith, on keeping our peace, because people are really getting wound up around a lot of different issues that are happening.
Well, I'll tell you, it's the same thing I tell my daughter when she gets in this way. I mean, for me personally, I have to get my peace with my God. So I want to always be in my quiet place. I tell everybody the same thing. Everybody has a different way they handle things. However, I think the first thing you always have to do is find your center location, because the thing is, if you expect, I have expectations of a bunch of nonsense for a while, so things don't shock me anymore. I've kind of learned to say, if you have expectations of things, if you know this is going to be a little tedious for a while, so I say get that happy place, and exercise more. I tell you, that's, to me, I go walking in the morning. I do my walk in the morning. And that focuses and centers me. So I find things that I need to do to find that peace. If you're a churchgoer, I say tell everybody go to any counseling you may have there. If you have other mechanisms, family, friends, whatever, that, sometimes just getting in a quiet place and having discussions with each other, take some of that load off, find other things that you may want to do or need to do. And it could be activities, it could be listening to music, it could be watching your favorite movie. Really take it down a notch. And I tell you, the best way to do it is turn off the news. I mean, I hate to say it like that, and I know we need to know what's going on, but sometimes you need a break from that. And right now, with things being so tedious, it may be time to say, something, let me take a break from this for a minute, and let me find my happy place for a while and then come back to this later on. So I say you find that which you can do that's going to take away some of that stress, and I say stick with it. I got my mechanisms now. Had to develop plenty of them too.
Absolutely. Well, and the other thing too is that we need to support each other.
Yes, absolutely.
Because there will be times where people will need a listening ear.
That's
They'll
what
need
I say.
an opportunity to just vent or to be able to speak out. And so, to me, this is a time now for community to come together, if like never before. Because we are going through this. So, but the one thing apparently you don't want to do is pick up the bottle and start drinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get into why.
Absolutely. But so, it is confusing. Yeah. I mean, because I remember vividly that study about red wine and how it would help your heart. I know you have a particular interest, in that. But apparently these studies and all have been going on for a while. So why now is there an emphasis or a desire to make sure people understand the connection between drinking and cancer?
That's a good question. I don't know the why now scenario, because they said this correlation has been known for
a long time,
plus years. Right. Sometimes I found that sometimes people just get a craw and they just need to start bringing that, and it's important, but you have to caveat this, and that's the importance of today. As I've done all the background, I say, okay, now I get it, I understand it, but I can bring it to context, because what I don't want to do is create public, kind of outcries and a lot of unnecessary worry. But everything is about how much and how often. And we'll talk about the caveat, because I know they say any. Right. And I want to clarify that as we go along. Okay. But I think, I don't know if it was just a specific, because cancer rates are what they are. They haven't increased that I've seen, so it's not so much that. I think it's just it's making people aware. And I think somebody just opted, and it's important to make people aware. And I think that's really what it stemmed down to, is saying, okay, we have to make this apparent, because I think if you saw some of the data about like smoking, right? That's well known, and they push that envelope,
right? And people have changed their behavior.
It's only 39% kind of push on alcohol causing cancer that they're making aware, and so they just wanted to bring that number up.
So, okay, let's talk about it. It's not all cancers. That's the first piece, correct?
Right.
There are 7, I believe.
So I always say you go head to toe, and you could come down the pike, and you can figure out head and neck cancers, the esophagus, and then the colon cancer, liver cancer. So it's really all in that GI system. Breast cancer, is one. So it's like from head to toe, you just go here down to the GI system, and that's really pretty much all the 7 ones that are associated. It was kind of interesting on the breast one, though.
Because it's only women, right?
Yeah, it's only women, or that they report. But it says that alcohol actually increases estrogen levels. But I didn't know that myself, so I had to kind of figure that one out. But because I was trying to figure out the correlation, and that's why I like taking estrogen pills. They kind of shy away from that unless you really have a lot of postmenopausal symptoms. But the increased estrogen levels is what creates the potential risk for cancer in women, for breast cancer.
So how much of a risk are we talking about? First, before we even get into that, let's talk about, we're talking wine,
all
beer,
wine, beer, liquor,
hard cider, all of it.
All of it.
Okay.
Now, again, context. It does increase the risk. Some of it's like 1.5 to 2 times the risk. The more you drink, the higher your risk. The thing that I want to make sure they clarify was that issue of they were saying, well, even one drink, was enough to increase your risk, but it's not like you drink one drink, you're going to develop cancer. There's so many other factors in there. They were just saying that if you want to reduce your risk to 0, the only way to do that is don't drink at all. So that was the thing. But it was just the production of something called acetaldehyde is one of the carcinogens that is a byproduct of a breakdown of alcohol in your body. And that's what you're exposed to, and that's what creates the problem. So that's the main issue.
So would you tell your patients when they come in, and perhaps they were drinking red wine because they thought that would be helpful for their heart, and maybe not.
The thing is, though, when you look at it, they say the more you drink, the higher your risk. So, drinking, one drink a day, puts your risk higher than drink 2 is higher than drinking 1. You drink 4 is higher than drinking 3 and 2 and 4, so forth and so on. But I think if you look at it, it was like 1.5 times the risk. It wasn't like a tremendous increase in risk, but it was enough. But the more you drink, then the higher that number goes up. So it's really about, think about it, because the issue of heart health is still there. I mean, that hasn't changed. They're just saying, when they came up with the original data on red wine and heart disease, they were looking singularly at that, but they weren't looking at the other factors. So you just that's the thing. So it still has the benefit there. You just have to decide, what's the risk.
Which risk is
I mean, because personally, I've never been a big drinker. I mean, if I drink a month, that's a lot for me. I just never been into it that much, and really it's just, if I don't have it at all, it doesn't bother me.
You're just a choir boy.
I know. I mean, because to be honest with you, for me, my whole life, once I got to college and I was focused on medical school, nothing else, really mattered. So I was so focused on that, I didn't even think about stuff. I mean, and it's kind of funny. I love coffee, but when I was really, it's usually the opposite. When you're in school, you're supposed to drink more coffee, but I actually drank less, and I didn't have a cup of coffee from my second year of college till I graduated from when I finished my residency. So that we're talking 4 years, 2 or 3 extra years of college, 4 years of medical school, 3 years of residency, and that's what I had.
What made you go back to drinking it?
When I went to Duke, they had this fancy coffee place in there, and listen, we were going to. I think I was going to one of the a conference they had at the hospital, and guys were saying, hey, I'm going to get some coffee. You want to go? And I was like, no, I don't drink that stuff. They said, no, this stuff is good. So I got flim-flammed. But and I've been drinking it ever since. But I don't drink coffee every day either. I may get, I get an espresso drink because I like espresso. So I may get that, a couple times a week. That's about it.
So it sounds like we're really talking about moderation.
Yeah. Well, you almost want to keep it less than moderation per se. Okay. You just want to be careful of your risk. In other words, example, if you got a family history of breast cancer, you have to be diligent with saying, okay, maybe I need to just pull back altogether because I already have a higher risk, period.
Got you.
If you have, say if you smoke too, because they say if you smoke and drink,
right?
Then your risk triples. So again, these are things that you have to ask yourself: what's your physicality like? Are you much of a person that takes care of themselves? Do you exercise? Do you have, because they say being obese is another risk factor.
So they were saying that tobacco, obesity, and then drinking was the third, number 3 in terms of preventable ways.
Yeah, that's why I told you
from getting cancer.
That's why I told you I'm going to dietary lockdown. I said, to me, because and a lot of people will say, and I've had people say this stuff, oh, you got to die something, or I say, oh, every time I look around, it's something new that I have to do. I said, but you tell the one thing I try to convey to people. I said, listen, this is where we are in this country, unfortunately. So, I'm in this master's program in public health. So I'm doing a class on global nutrition now. So I'm starting to learn about how that impacts, because it's pesticides on stuff you eat. And then you have this ultra processed foods that really are, nutrient poor that we do. So our lifestyle impacts significantly. And I think I told you my youngest went to Ireland for that semester when they got to UNC. She did a semester in Ireland at another university there. And every time she would call me, she's like, "Dad, I could stay here the whole 4 years. This stuff is great over here." And I'm like, "Well, what's beneficial?" Right. She says, "Well, the food is great." She says, like, it tastes different, and she was saying that because they don't use preservatives and all this other stuff, so everything is fresh, there, and and they walk everywhere over there. They don't sit there like how we don't ever want to do nothing. We roll over in bed, and everybody says they see me on Facebook walking. They say, "Oh yeah, I watched you. I was in my bed when I was watching you." And
your point is get up and move.
Get up. Yeah. So, but we our lifestyles get us more in trouble than the actual issue of alcohol itself, and that's where our problems are.
757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. What are your questions about drinking and your increasing risk of developing cancer? 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Have you made a lifestyle change? Have you decided that you're doing mocktails instead of cocktails? As an example, give us a call, 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So you were saying that if you drink, the more you drink, the higher the risk. The higher the risk. Okay. But is it simply because of alcohol, or do you also have to have other things going on in order to develop cancer?
Well, a lot of times,
does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, a lot of times you find with studies that they try to look at controlling the other factors, but you can't always control these other factors in terms of what you know about people and their habits and what have you. So they could do generalizations, and that's what you have as a generalization of that. So your risk is, they're just trying to bring awareness to that your risk is higher to do it than not to do it, because one thing we find is, as an example, people smoke and they'll say, "Okay, I stopped smoking, I vape." I'm like, that's still, you're still doing something harmful to your body. Okay, now I smoke weed. I'm like, well, okay, there's a 42% risk of stroke with weed, smoking marijuana. So, okay, how are you going to combat that one? Okay, well, then now drink. It's like, and I'm like, let me ask you a question. Why do you have to do something that gets
to alter your brain?
Yeah, get high on sunshine like the Commodores. You don't have to do this. I understand everybody's different. Everybody has a sense of, they may have some issue in their life they're dealing with, and I get that part. But the issue becomes, my job as a cardiologist, as a physician first, is to help you stay alive. And doing so, we may have to make some sacrifices, the things we don't normally sacrifice for the greater good. And that is one of those things that you have to say, okay, how much do you have to do in order to function on a day-to-day basis? And I know some people just like drinking. Some people just like smoking, and I get it. But understand what it means. Yeah, what it's doing to you. And then one of the things that I want to bring up is this issue that I didn't know this part. I had to read up on this. Was a lot, with smoking, they say you stop smoking, your risk goes down. But it's not. That didn't seem to be the case with stopping alcohol, in your risk.
Right, because they were saying that it could be up to like 35 years before your risk goes back down to as if it was a zero risk.
Exactly, Wow. So, and I think that's because this is the issue, that acetaldehyde we talked about, it affects the DNA, which changes your DNA structure, and that's the problem, because once you start manipulating DNA, because it damages cells, and that's the problem with cancer production. And that's where a lot of people, when they have the genetic predisposition, is because of a genetic marker that increases your risk. But if you damage your DNA because of this particular byproduct of alcohol, then so you got all that stuff has to wear off. And obviously it takes years. I didn't know it was going to take 35, but that's a long time. But that's a long time. But then again, it goes back, and they were saying just to reduce your risk to a non-drinker. It's 35 years. I mean, the risk is always, if you stop exposing yourself to it, and that's why I want to make sure, I don't want people to say, well, I might as well keep drinking this if it's going to take 35 years. But what they're saying is to get your risk down to a non-drinker, a never drinker. It's going to take that long.
So the former Surgeon General said you should put notices on liquor bottles and on beer cans and wine bottles and so forth. They were saying that, maybe it starts in the doctor's office. What do you think, especially with your public health background now, what's the best way to get the message across so that people understand it without scaring them half to death?
I think like this type of platform, what we're doing here today, because we caveat it, because the problem is when you read this material is the one thing I've learned, when you write, you have to write with an eye of saying, okay, let me read this now like I'm just a novice, and how am I going to interpret this information? Because sometimes when you read this stuff, it can really, I had to go to 3 or 4 different sources just to make sure I was clear, because they kept talking about your risk is high. But I'm like, okay, firstly, well, how high is the risk?
Right.
I said, I can't tell. So I had to go to 3 or 4 different sources. That's why I sent you that source, because I said, this is the best one I've seen where it actually defines that 1.5 to 2 times risk, because I couldn't figure that out. I'm like, okay, we know it increases, but it could be is it a percentage point?
Right,
is
exactly.
it 50%? I mean, I need to understand that, because I have to convey to people. And you kind of, another thing, I think the awareness, and you have to ask yourself, and what I always do is, if I'm sitting on the other side, and what do I want to know so I can understand this material, and then subsequently see, do I want to change my life for the better? But you want to understand the risk. Now, I want to caveat that to say, I think anytime you're doing something that has potential to harm yourself, the one thing you cannot predict is, like, say as an example, say you and I were drinking every day. Your risk, we may have a similar risk, but whether or not one of us goes on to develop cancer, that's an individual thing. And that's when those other things you talked about may click in, with genetic predisposition, other exposures we may have. There may be other trigger points. So it may be that we do the same, but we may not. But
we may not have the same result and same outcome.
Yeah, so that's the difference. So
we got a Facebook question from Liz in Suffolk. Wants to know what's more harmful, having 1 drink a day or going out once a week and having 4 or 5 drinks in one evening?
About the same.
It's about the same.
Okay. They say binge drinking is just as bad.
It's just as bad.
See, so the thing is, now if you go and drink
so the fact that I was just like really holding off until the weekend doesn't work, right?
No, it doesn't work. But the thing is, you have to ask yourself, as you go out on the weekend, and say you just did that 1 drink on the weekend and you didn't do 4 or 5.
Right.
Then, and again, it's a matter of changing your lifestyle. The one thing that you want to try to convey, look at it as you're trying to live. You're trying to have that best life. Because I'm going to tell you, the older you get, the more, you start thinking about this kind of stuff.
But what's interesting too, though, even the older you get too, the alcohol affects you differently.
Yeah.
I have friends who have said, you know what, I used to be able to drink 2 or 3 glasses of wine at a sitting. Now I can barely get through 1. It's not so much being drunk. It's just you don't feel right. Afterwards.
We change. It's like one of the interesting things with healthcare is I always laugh when somebody says this to me. Like, I have somebody come in and they're like, say, I'm just going to throw a number. They're 75 years old, and they have hypertension. I ain't never had a problem with my blood pressure before. And I said, well, you've never been 75 before either. and I don't say that in a negative way, but the thing is, the people, I'm like, you're not 20 anymore.
Right.
I'm not, that's not a knock. That is a reality check that you cannot do. Just like I can't go running. When I was in high school, I did long distance running.
Wow.
And I could run 6 miles like there was nothing. I can't do that now, and wouldn't try. When you start, you have to change. You have to adapt your changes accordingly. So that comment about your response to alcohol is going to be different because you metabolize differently. Everything's different. Even our brain cells start to deteriorate as we get older.
Oh, Lord.
Period. So, why push the envelope? That's why I kind of say, that's why I bring my wife. My wife's she's all in this eating healthy stuff. And that's I mean, and I didn't realize until she started talking to me about certain things about these ultra processed foods. And then when I went to this global nutrition class, I was like, man, I mean, you see how this stuff impacts, and you understand the dynamics, because really it's all about money in the end. How do you create food cheaper?
More abundant and cheaper.
Exactly. Yeah. But the problem is, what is it doing to us? And that's where I tell people, listen, you do your homework. I mean, my wife grows all her own stuff now. I mean, she's like, I ain't getting this stuff out that store. and I cannot say I blame her. I mean, but there's a lot of good stuff that's there. You just have to be careful.
You have to be careful and discerning.
And really learn
and
what you're
education
doing.
is the key. I mean,
Absolutely.
really educating yourself as much as you can. So when you go into the doctor's office, whether it's your primary care or if it's your office or others, and there's that little form that you fill out, that says, and they ask you some questions, and they say, they ask you, how many drinks do you have per day?
You talking about the form that most people lie on? You talking about that form? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
But my question to you is, how do you counsel? When you see that, I mean, do you take time to say, let's pay attention to this?
Well, the one thing you got, once you weed through, because normally whatever people put down is going to be more or less than what they have up there. That's just the reality. And what I typically do is, when I'm interviewing people, you got to connect with them. So, I will find out, like an example, find out what they're, because, docs, we don't connect like we used to with patients. And I think that's a mistake. I think we're doing better, because when you're trying to take care of somebody, the first thing you have to do is you have to garnish trust with that individual. You have to develop that relationship. The relationship comes with people thinking you care about them, so you have to understand from whence they came, their background, all this. So, what I typically do the first time, if I see, like, say as an example, it was kind of funniest thing where somebody will put, they don't smoke marijuana, you walk in the room and it's reeking of marijuana. I mean, it's just crazy. And they'll sweep it down. They're not, I was with my brother, he was smoking it. I'm like, yeah, then they blow their breath on you and you smell the marijuana. I said, listen, I mean, lying to me is not helping you. I'm not here to judge. I'm here to help. I said, so the first thing is you got to be straight up with me so I can help you. I said, so that's the first thing. But you understand, because sometimes people have an addiction. Yeah. And if they have an addiction, they're not going to be ready to jump up and down and say, I have an addiction. So they're going to be careful with it. You have this certain clues you have to look for and you listen for. How they, as an example, like what I typically would do, and they say, like, I only drink one drink every year, and I'll start talking about other things, and I'll ask another question, and sometimes the truth will come out, later on, and that's fine if you find out they do more. Then you start talking about what's the risks, because especially because liver risks, and I tell you, I'm not shocked at all in the end, because when you look at the risk of liver cancer, you do see that, pancreatic cancer, liver cancers, you'll see that with that, because again, that's where this byproduct is being produced. And
so it sounds more like this is more about knowledge and making sure that people understand, because we all know about cirrhosis of the liver and all those kinds of things that were associated with alcohol, but just making sure that this connection is there. So
because it has to be emphasized in the past, so that's what they're trying to do.
Okay, so if you're just joining us, it's another View on Health with cardiologist Dr. Keith Newby. Now, when we come back, we're going to see another side of Dr. Newby, his love of the arts and Virginia Ballet. We'll be right back.
I'm with Marcellus, and you all are checking out Another View. Don't go anywhere. Check us out.
And welcome back. If you've never experienced a performance by Ballet Virginia, please put it on your bucket list. Ballet Virginia is a professional ballet company in residence at the Sandler Center for the Performing Arts under the direction of Lydia Roberts Coco. Performing both classical and contemporary works, these talented artists bring diversity, passion, and artistry to the stage with every performance. We welcome Lydia Roberts Coco. Hi.
Hello.
How are you? Welcome to Another View.
Thank you.
Company Associate Artistic Director Jared Allen Brunson. Hi there.
Good
How are
afternoon.
you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. So first I want to know, Dr. Newby, what is your connection to Ballet Virginia?
Well, my youngest, who I brought up earlier, was actually, she would practice ballet for years. I mean, I think when she was 5 years old, I think when she joined Ballet Virginia, went to classes and things, and I think she really developed that love for dance. Now I was a little uncultured, before, and I really didn't appreciate the arts. But I would tell you, this young lady right here, I mean, if you watch her perform, you can really understand it. I used to just go just to see the expression of art, and then one of Marcella's mentors, who I think she'll talk about, was Lorraine Graves, and we'll get into that. But that was really the connection, was my youngest, and she actually danced up until I think she was she's 19 now, about to turn 20, so I think she was 17. And then she went off to Ireland, but she's actually in a dance company down there now. Because that love hasn't really, left her. And I didn't realize. I mean, I've been saying this because it's my daughter, but I've watched her. She can pick up some moves I've never seen. She had to get that from her mother. So.
Well, Coco, tell us about Ballet Virginia. What exactly do you guys do? I've had the pleasure of seeing your performances, and they are incredibly dynamic.
Oh, thank you so
talk to
much.
us about the company.
Okay, so we have an academy. We are located on 21st Street in Norfolk, but we also have a professional company, which I'm the artistic director of, and Jared works alongside of me. We are such a diverse company within our styles, within our people. We do contemporary works and classical ballet. The dancers are just exceptional in all genres of dance.
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, Jared, I was amazed. It's like, okay, this does not look like the Nutcracker. In terms of, that's what you think about in terms of classical ballet, but it's such a mixture. How did you get involved?
Well, I came in as a guest in 2022 to perform the world premiere of Lydia's work about the Central Park Five,
Which was powerful.
Was amazing, an amazing experience. And from then on, I stayed, and we've been doing amazing work ever since, including the Nutcracker.
Including the Nutcracker. So now you have a special piece that you're working on for February, right?
Yes.
For Black History Month.
Yes.
And it focuses on someone that all of us in this room knew, who is Lorraine Graves. And you want to tell us, for our audience, remind us who she is, who she was, and who she is still.
Okay, so Lorraine Graves grew up here in Norfolk. She was the first student at the Norfolk Civic Ballet, first African-American student. She then went on to perform with Dance Theater of Harlem. She was a principal dancer. She was their rehearsal director. She has gone back to set different works on the company. She then came back to Virginia, and then she was a teacher for Ballet Virginia, for Governor's School. She was also a guest teacher for the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. She was the head adjudicator for the West Virginia Dance Festival, which she later brought me on board with that. And Lorraine was just an amazing person. From her dance career, from her teaching to her mentoring, she has impacted so many people's lives, including mine.
Absolutely. Yeah, she was a personal friend of mine, and yours also, Keith, right? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, her and her whole family.
Absolutely. So tell us about the performance that you're preparing.
Okay, so the production is going to be at the Ziders. It's on February 21st and 22nd. It's called Heart and Soul. And our February productions are always Black History Month related, which is why I did the Central Park 5 piece the last few years. So this year, with Lorraine passing last year, I wanted to do something special for her, and the whole production is a tribute to her. I'm also choreographing a piece simply called Lorraine, and it's about just celebrating her life, the joyous moments of her dancing, the mentorship she developed with so many students, and then just how the legacy continues on through her students. And my daughter, Kyra Coco, who's also with American Ballet Theater, she's coming to be a special guest artist, as well as my other daughter, Gianna, who used to dance with us. Other former students and other former company members are coming back, so it's going to be a wonderful production of bringing back people that Lorraine has touched.
Did you dance with Lorraine, Jared?
I was lucky enough to have some classes where she taught, and I was able to help actually assist when she was coaching Nutcracker. Actually, I sat next to her and took notes for her and all that stuff, so it was really great. And she's obviously seen me dance.
So for people who don't, because Lisa asked me a question when we were talking about Central Park 5, and I was just raving about, just how powerful to sit in the room, be that close to the stage, and as I said to her, I could even hear their footsteps on the stage. I mean, it was just, but if you don't know the story, how do you tell it through dance for your audience? I mean, her question was, is there a narrator? Is there somebody saying this is what happened here, or this is what happened there? Give us a sense of how that happens?
Well, that's a great question, because that's something that I take a lot of time prior to, like the Central Park 5 story, the performance. I was like, how am I going to relay this message and this story? Because I can't do it literally through dance. I can't do it so that it's just so cut and dry that everyone understands. So I found a way with having a little bit of a narration of Oprah Winfrey as doing this interview about the Central Park 5 to open it. So that kind of got the story very clear for the audience. And then the way that I developed the storyline, I think, was very clear with having just one female prosecutor that helped to narrate the story and the struggle within their, when they were being questioned and detained without their parents. Yeah. So I think the storyline really just came clear, and it was very emotional for people to watch.
I'm curious, Jared, since you were the lead, what was going through your head, even though, because I know you've performed it many times, but each time, is there a different emotion for you, or was there a different emotion for you? Do you lose yourself completely in it, and how draining is it that when you're done, do you have to go sit in the corner somewhere and catch up?
That's a good question. There's a process, as Lydia was explaining, that leads up to the performances that I feel like, when you're in your rehearsal space, it's more of a sanctuary. There's no audience, so I don't feel like I'm performing. I'm actually having an experience in those rehearsal periods, which could last up to three to 4 weeks. And there's actually there's a moment where we all have to sort of weep or like cry a little bit. And tapping into that there's no fake way to do it. And so every rehearsal turned into that experience, and whether that was bringing up, sadness, or whether it was bringing up just, there's a lot of emotions that can come out, whether you're sad or not. In that moment, I was having a great day, and now I'm crying. It requires an honesty on your part as a dancer to be able to tap into that. And I think that when we're doing those types of work, it really allows me as an artist to tap into the honesty that is the human experience.
Is it more intense when you're in rehearsal or when you're actually on the stage in front of an audience?
It's more intense in rehearsal, I believe.
Really?
Yeah, you're with your cohorts, you're with your friends or your directors, people who know you, and you feel more in a safe space, actually. And so you can actually really go far and not, offend any audience members or feel like, some of the people are watching me. And then by the time you get to the stage, after all of those hours rehearsing, you almost forget what even just happened, because it's dark, when you're on stage, we as dancers can't see anything. Right. So it's when you go back to remember what just happened, you actually don't, because you only saw darkness.
You just saw darkness. What about for you, Coco?
Well, as a choreographer,
Lydia,
that's fine. As a choreographer with developing the Central Park 5 piece, I realized that I had to kind of come outside of myself and also speak to them a lot about their own experiences as Black men, because I didn't have that experience. So for them to kind of tap into their own experiences in life, to be able to bring that to life and to really be able to make it so that people understood, you know. And I think that I really gave them the luxury of kind of developing. Even there was a section that I said, okay, I'm not going to tell you what to do here. Just show me what you're feeling. And I did that with Jared for his solo. And after he finished, I was just crying.
So what are you doing for Lorraine? Yes.
Yeah, it was the same kind of concept. I thought to myself, how am I going to relay this story about Lorraine so that it reads? So it's just the first section is celebrating her life. And then you see there's a section where she's mentoring, and she's like giving up the spotlight, and everyone's coming to her and giving her like a reverent bow. And then you see her get up. Well, I don't want to tell too much here. I'm telling too much.
It was the one thing I love about the arts is the ability to express through different mechanisms. And I think that's one of the things I wanted to bring out here was so people have another concept of how we can be expressive through things other than just words.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, I mean, I'm a music person. I've always been that way. So I have learned to appreciate it. But then when you watch them in action, I think that's when you really start to get a sense of that, because you see a love of the art form itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that I wanted them up here, because I thought that people need to hear about it. You know, because a lot of times we don't know all these things that's going on in the city all the time. Right. And I think this was a good way of bringing that up to say, listen, check this out, because of just the love of the art form.
Absolutely.
And when you see them expressing it and you see the love that they express, you can't help but feel it, just like you mentioned about when you saw their performance.
Yeah, it was just so incredibly powerful. But it takes a lot in order to, beyond the choreography and all of that, to put on a performance. Give us a sense of what is actually involved. You start with, I want to do this and I want to honor Lorraine, and then you get to the end. What's happened in the middle?
Oh, there's so much that goes into it that people don't realize. You know, there's the production side of it. You know, I have to speak with the lighting designer. I have to come up with the lighting plots for him, and speak with the stage manager. They have to hire a crew. There's costumes involved. There's so much that I may be missing something there.
No, you're not. Not only that, you know, we have dancers here in Norfolk, but we also have dancers that we're bringing in from Dallas and from other places.
From American Ballet Theater in New York, yes.
Oh,
so there's a lot of coordination that goes into making sure that they have a place to stay when they get here, and you know, making sure that they're well taken care of. Travel, yeah. So
their per diem. It's just so much.
Are there things that people who are outside of the arts but love the arts, ways that they can help you?
Sure. We have our website. It's www.balletvirginia.org, and there is a site there that's for donations. There's a specific site for the Lorraine Graves donation site. So
there are ways.
Yes. So
are there still children today who will come and say, I want to do ballet?
Oh, yes.
Especially after they've seen what you guys do. I mean, because I think a lot of people think all they want to do is hip hop or you know, or maybe modern dance or something like that. But still, you're able to recruit.
And I think that this piece about Lorraine is going to be another thing that will help, especially bring young Black women, little girls, you know, to see that there's representation that matters. You know,
I think one thing we didn't mention is we are using a couple of students, younger students, to be in this piece as well. So
I will have a young Lorraine to start.
Yes. So we're going through the timeline.
Fun.
And I tell you, I talked to her mother about it, and I emailed and I said, you know, it's just a 2-minute part, but she's actually going to be the young Lorraine. She said, well, the way that little girl jumped up and down and was just like, oh my God. So, you know, it's just great that we can do this tribute for Lorraine.
Wow.
And I'm sure Lorraine is looking down and happy.
Well, one of the things I would say with Lorraine is, having known her for years, is she and I would have these offline discussions, but just listen to the struggle that she went through, especially in that time frame, you know, trying to be, where she's like the only one African American there in the world that was predominated by other cultures, and struggles that she went through. I can only imagine, but the perseverance that she
She
sustained
did.
throughout that
That's
whole
right.
thing. It was just, I mean, I was impressed. I mean, when you listen to her talk about what she went through, I was like, man, what I went through was minute
And,
in comparison.
it's so interesting because people would say, well, I mean, wow, she came from Norfolk, Virginia. Because there's this thought that if you're going to achieve greatness, you have to come from New York or you have to be LA or one of the bigger cities and so forth. But it can come, talent is talent,
Yes.
right? So I'm curious because I really want to hear from both of you in light of where we seem to be in place and time in this country right now. How much more critical are the arts in terms of making sure that our story is not erased? Because it seems like there's this
push
to erase, the black and brown story in this country. How will the arts help to make a difference and keep that?
The arts is just so important because I think, like Dr. Newby was saying, we can have so many conversations about different topics and different things that, are wrong in this world. But sometimes through the arts, dance, whatever, it can speak to people in a different way than words. So just like with the Central Park 5 piece, I had so many people, white, black, everything, coming up to me crying and hugging me, thanking me for that. So sometimes it's able to touch and reach people in a way that conversations can't. So the arts is very vital.
Very much.
And I want to tie back to Dr. Newby's section about just health, mental health and physical health, and having an outlet like dance really alleviates stress. It's cortisol. It depletes your cortisol, being able to get up and move around, and so it has more implications than just telling a story. It also is a way to leave the TV, turn it off,
Leave the wine.
leave the wine, and get physical.
Yeah, I want to see what happens after the performance. We're leaving that wine.
It's kind of interesting you brought that because if he didn't say it, I was about to say when you mentioned earlier about the mental health piece and how you alleviate the stress, because it was kind of interesting. Marcella came in town and we went to the Nutcracker performance in December. And just sitting there, and because I love the Nutcracker performance. I love the music, and I love the expression of that piece. And there's no words really spoken; it's all just through art form. And just sitting there with her and experience, I said, "How does it feel to be on this side?" Because she was in every Nutcracker performance the whole time she was with the BV. But now it's just BV. Or is it BVI?
Ballet Virginia.
Ballet Virginia. So, I just think that piece really helps to take you to a different place for a while. And leave all the other stuff behind and all the stress of life. And that just the escape for that little bit of time can sometimes be so invaluable.
Jared, how did you get started in dance? What drew you to become a dancer?
My uncle was a very popular dancer in Miami, and I just
Ballet?
He did ballet. He was more of the hip hop and commercial scene. He did like commercials and all that stuff, music videos. So I was exposed at a very young age. I went everywhere he went. So at a very young age, I was on sets and I was on commercial sets and just looking at him. And so I was sort of born into it in a way.
Is that where you're from?
But why choose ballet as opposed to hip hop or being a music video dancer or anything like that?
I had some inspirations, looking at The Wiz was one of my favorite movies as a kid, and one of the choreographers and dancers from The Wiz ended up coming to my hometown and making a show called The Chocolate Nutcracker. So I ended up doing that. But what made me stay with ballet, honestly, was the challenge. I felt that you didn't need to just be an athlete. You also needed to be an artist and an intellect as well, because you're dealing with so many different aspects, not just physical, but you're learning another language. You're learning French when you do ballet, and you're not just doing mechanical work. You're actually having to learn how to express. So I found that amalgamation of things to be challenging enough to keep me involved.
So, Lydia, how did you get into
I
dance?
kind of like Jared. My sister was taking ballet, and I would go with my mom to pick her up, and my mom would just see me in the little lobby twirling around, and I knew from such a young age that I wanted to become a professional dancer. I actually, as soon as I knew how to read, I would start looking at career manuals and trying to figure out how much dancers made.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, after I graduated high school, I went to Alvin Ailey and got a scholarship, and then got into the company. I got into the second company, and then went on to dance with Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater for many years, and then relocated back here later in life.
And now you have
And that's
ballet.
when I met Lorraine. Actually, I knew of Lorraine when I was younger, but I only met her when I returned back here after Alvin Ailey and after she returned from Dance Theater Harlem, and we became the best of friends.
Oh, gosh. So this is a really personal
Yes.
performance for you.
Yes,
for you
definitely.
also. Wow, that's incredible. So, what would your advice be to parents out there whose little ones are either twirling around, like you said, or otherwise expressing an interest in becoming a dancer?
Yes, definitely. By all means, if that's something that you see that is just ingrained in them, then put them in and give them that opportunity. For me, like I said, I knew it. It's a God-given. I was wired to do this, and I knew that was the path that I had to take in life. So some kids might have that, and if you see that, by all means, put them in. And we are on 21st Street. Bring them over. We have
There
great
we go.
teachers.
Jared, I'm curious. Were you teased when you were little? Because you were young when you started dancing, right?
Mm-hmm. I was teased quite a bit because I started ballet in middle school at a arts program, so I would take ballet class and then go to math. And so people would see me leaving the dance department, and definitely that was there. And very soon after, my uncle, who was sort of like my dad at the time, put me in martial arts right after that. He was like, you're gonna have both, okay? So after school, I would go take Taekwondo. But yeah, that definitely, I mean, it was a character builder, but that definitely happened. I don't know if it happens anymore.
It does.
It does.
I mean, kids are mean.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know.
they can be extremely
Kids can
mean,
be
but
mean,
a
that's
lot of
true.
times people are mean when they don't understand. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's
Exactly.
really, but that's the
Exactly.
whole point of bringing understanding to people.
Yeah. So tell us, if people want to get tickets, what do they need to do? And then tell us the date and everything again.
Okay, so we are performing at the Ziders American Dream Theater February 21st and 22nd. The shows are at 7:30 p.m. And then we are also at the Attics on Sunday at 5 p.m.
So you have three opportunities
Three
to come
opportunities.
and see this performance. And if they need more information, what's the website?
www.Ballet Virginia, Virginia completely spelled out, .org.
BalletVirginia.org. Thank you guys so much for joining
You
us.
are
We really
welcome. Thank you for
appreciate it.
having
Not
us.
a problem. All right, Dr. Newby, you have the last 30 seconds
Oh,
or so.
wow.
What do you want to
Okay.
tell people? Because you always give a nugget of encouragement as we
Well, I always say,
continue
listen,
to do our
one
help.
thing the reason why we do this, and we're trying to touch to the audience, we want to educate, we want to bring awareness. This alcohol issue, again, it does about moderation, and make sure you understand the risks, understand everything about you. And that's why I tell people, get your family history, know your history of others in your family. And that's what in our community, we don't talk as much about that. Right. So I think that will help to really identify your relative risk.
Absolutely. Thank you as always, sir. We will see you next month. And thank you for the privilege of your time over this past hour, our audience. You can listen to this show again or share it with a friend by visiting whro.org/anotherview, or you can go to Spotify, or you can find us wherever you go for your podcast listening pleasure. Next week on Another View, we kick off Black History Month with the history of jazz. Our guest is Wayne Winborn, Executive Director of the Institute of Jazz Studies at Rutgers University, Newark, and he actually has a real spin on jazz and what's happening in our world today. Our theme music is an original composition created especially for Another View by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Jordan Christie is our audio engineer. And Dr. Barry Graham answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Do something this weekend that brings peace to your soul. And let's get together again next Thursday at noon for Another View.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, partnering with donors from all walks of life to improve southeastern Virginia through grants, scholarships, and leadership initiatives. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org.